Every time a new Soulslike drops, we all get that familiar rush. New world, new boss fights, new struggle. But let's be real. Learning a new combat system with every release can feel like trying to fight a boss without your weapon. Wuchang Fallen Feathers especially shakes things up with its own unique rhythm. And if you're feeling a little overwhelmed, don't worry, you're not alone. In this guide, I'm going to break down everything you need to know about Wuchang's combat system so you can step into battle with confidence instead of confusion. Whether this is your first Souls-like, or if you're a seasoned veteran, we've got you covered from how to prepare and build your character, all the way to dealing the killing blow. Before rushing into battle, take the time to get familiar with the equipment screen in the in-game menu. This is where you'll perform on-the-fly changes to your build while actively exploring the world. At first, there won't be much to look at, but you'll acquire a fair bit of equipment in the early stages of the game that'll provide you with numerous options to choose from. Wuchang acquires a longsword in the first few seconds of the game, but it won't be long before access to axes, dual blades, spears, and one-handed swords is available. Each weapon features a unique moveset and skill tree that can be refined as you level her up. You can equip 2 weapons at a time, and as you continue to progress, you'll even be able to build both weapons to synergize with each other. More on that later. When acquiring a new weapon, you'll want to look at the control attributes on the right side of the weapons menu. These values range from 1 to 6 and translate directly into how that weapon's damage will adjust for the given stat. If you're familiar with Elden Ring or Dark Souls combat, you can easily apply your knowledge of weapon scaling to Wuchang. In this context, E scaling in Elden Ring would be a 1 in Wuchang, and S would be a 6. Now that you're properly armed, next you'll want to decide which armor is best for your build. Unlike many Souls-likes, Wuchang's armor options have no regard for weight, which makes the decision-making process fairly easy for whatever you're up against. But the real tip here is if you're into Fashion Souls, you can apply any acquired armor skin to your currently equipped piece so you can be optimal and stylish. To do this, simply press the Alter Equipment button while hovering over a piece and choose from your other equipment to apply the skin. Looking good! Below your armor, you'll find the Jade Pendants. These are interchangeable trinkets that provide various enhancements to your build. They can range from all-purpose flat bonuses to use case-specific ones and anywhere in between. In addition to a handful of weapon choices, Wuchang also has a variety of spells to choose from as well. But instead of gaining access to a ton of weapon choices early on, you'll have to put in some work to acquire a repertoire of spells, as many of them are locked behind boss battles and optional content. These spells allow Wuchang to assault foes from a distance with numerous affinities, but in order to utilize these spells, you'll need a resource called Skyborn Might to cast them, which is gained primarily by perfectly dodging enemy attacks. More on that later though. At the bottom of the equipment menu, you'll find the consumable bar. This is where your health flask resides, but there are many other consumables that provide a wide range of benefits like status effect resistance, stamina efficiency, throwable weapons, and eventually an item that allows you to temper your weapon to temporarily add powerful effects to it. Your weapons and equipment menus will be heavily utilized as you make adjustments to your build, but Wuchang's true power is unlocked when visiting the shrines and making more significant modifications there. The Impetus Repository is where you advance Wuchang's level and acquire skills with the Red Mercury Essence awarded at each level. There's a tree available for every weapon type, as well as a separate branch focused on improving your overall combat utilities. Early on, I recommend putting your first few skill points into this utility tree, as you'll be able to bring newer, more powerful weapons online much faster, while also improving your survivability with your flask and tempering those weapons to become more potent. Once you've leveled a bit more and decided on which weapons you like best, I would then recommend pursuing the respective trees and upgrading your mastery, which provides a flat increase to that weapon's efficacy. To do this, you'll not only need Red Mercury Essence, but also special red feathers, which are mainly dropped by elite enemies, indicated by their glowing red eyes. But they can also be found on other rare enemies as well, such as these Jar Demons. By the way, there's no penalty for resetting your skills, so if at any point you change your mind and want to try something else, feel free to do so anytime you're at a shrine. Among other rare items you might find while exploring are the Benediction Stones. There are 3 different benedictions: Oath, Memory, and Wisdom, which you can identify within the benediction menu itself at the shrine, or by tabbing over to them in the inventory menu and looking at the right side of the screen. You can slot one of each type into your equipped weapons, and these stones offer similar bonuses to the Jade Pendants, but are only active when that weapon is equipped. Just like with your skill points in the Impetus repository, you can remove these stones anytime you're at a shrine, so be sure to reclaim them when you graduate to other weapons. After defeating Man-Eating Dutanga, one of the early bosses in the game, you'll unlock the ability to temper your weapon. A consumable will be placed in your inventory at the time you unlock this, so don't forget to put it on your bar. In the Temperance menu at the shrine, you'll find several slots for acupoint needles that provide the temporary bonuses your weapon will gain. You'll start with a Yangqi needle that applies fire and burn, but if you've put skill points into the utility tree, you can unlock a ton of options for Yangqi acupoint needles early on that allow you to custom tailor powerful status effects such as Frostbite, Lightning, and Poise Break off the rip. But as you explore the world, you'll find needles of the other varieties that improve the scaling and overall power factor of your weapon. Tempering is arguably one of the single most potent things you can do to make your weapon sing during a boss fight, so make sure to tailor it often to suit your needs in combat. I mentioned at the beginning of this video that Wuchang's rhythm is unique, and now that you're prepared, it's time to get a taste of exactly why this is the case. You'll notice in your first few battles that combat is noticeably slower paced than other Souls-likes and puts the emphasis on playing defensively. This is especially true considering that most punish windows don't even give you enough time to do full combos before you're on your back foot again. Finding the right playstyle can be challenging, but in the back half of this guide, we're going in depth on all of the combat systems to help you decide which approach is best for you, starting with the most important of all. Your path to survival in Wuchang will ultimately depend on how well you can avoid damage, and thankfully there's no shortage of ways to avoid and mitigate it. No matter which weapon you're swinging around, dodging is an incredibly reliable method of avoiding damage and also achieving favorable positioning to retaliate. If you're especially careful of the timing, you'll also perform a perfect dodge called a shimmer. Doing so awards you with a charge of Skyborn Might, making it a great way to build up a reserve for unleashing your powerful skills during punish windows. Next are blocks and deflects. Unfortunately, they aren't available on all weapons, although every weapon typically has some form of defensive ability either as a discipline skill or a weapon skill. If you're into that playstyle, the option is available, but the parry windows aren't very generous and you won't be able to reposition like you can with dodging. For more aggressive playstyles, you'll want to consider Alacrity and Clash builds, as they allow you to mitigate damage taken mid-attack, hopefully affording you a bit of survivability should you get caught in a combo. Alacrity provides this benefit when casting spells, while Clash occurs with your melee weapon. Look for Alacrity in spell descriptions and Clash in the Impetus repository for certain weapons. Regardless of playstyle, you likely won't be progressing much without knowing how to generate and use Skyborn Might. Simply put, it is your #1 resource for putting out heavy damage in combat. Performing specific combat feats, such as perfect dodges and combos, and consuming plume branches are a few ways to generate this resource early on, but as you further specialize your weapon in the Impetus repository, you can eventually target nodes that specifically complement your playstyle to generate even more. This is important because Skyborn Might is used to cast spells and perform swift draws and swift strikes. We've discussed spells already, but swift draws are useful for enabling you to quickly switch weapons in combat. By consuming a charge, you instantly switch weapons and perform an initial attack with the swapped weapon. Swift strikes enable you to avoid the windup on your weapon skill and perform it instantly, which is crucial for putting out significant damage and poise break during the limited punish windows. Every weapon can also unlock a swift strike for charged heavy attacks, provided you invest the skill points to learn it. Speaking of weapon skills, for Souls vets, these are essentially your weapon arts, Ashes of War, etc., but in Wuchang, they're not quite as artsy, ashy, I don't know. But they are still useful for fine-tuning your build. Every weapon comes with 2 skills, one of which is locked to that weapon, and the other can be changed by applying a discipline skill which you can learn from that weapon's skill tree. These discipline skills accommodate a ton of playstyles, offering solid choices for offense, defense, or anything in between. Like many Souls-likes, breaking a boss's posture is another way to deal heavy damage. But given how skittish many of the bosses are in Wuchang, this is much easier said than done. That said, during your punish windows you can build up posture damage, and upon reaching the boss's limit you can obliterate a massive chunk of their health by approaching them and performing a light attack. If you can manage to pull one off, great. But I recommend sticking with a defensive approach where you can, as chasing down the boss after they leap away almost always ends in disaster. You can obliterate other enemies too though, and if you enjoy sneaking around, you can definitely abuse this mechanic in more than a few places to dispatch unsuspecting trash mobs. In fact, there's a lot of world content outside of bosses that gives you some freedom to choose your approach, such as performing plunge attacks from above, throwing fire consumables to blow up barrels, or even in some cases, getting them stuck. And if you feel you need to farm to gain an edge in combat, or to get those extra few scraps of red mercury to hit the next level, these techniques can definitely be used to do so. And that's everything you need to know to get started mastering the combat in Wuchang Fallen Feathers. It's always a bit of a learning curve with a new Souls-like, but once you find what works for you and how to steer around that little bit of jank that seems to make its way into every game, it's just a matter of time and practice before you're dominating the battlefield. For more help and tips with Wuchang Fallen Feathers, check out our ever-growing wiki on IGN.com. And for everything else, keep it here on IGN.